So, warm greetings for the beginning of our week. And as a way of beginning this meditation, to use the analogy of at a time when you are relaxed and maybe sitting in a park, laying on the grass, sitting on a hilltop, and there might be a single cloud floating through the blue sky. And it might be enjoyable to just watch the cloud float, maybe shift and change its shape as it does so. But it's very clear that you are not interfering with the cloud or holding on to the cloud or stopping it from floating by. You're simply watching the cloud. And in a certain sense, you are giving the cloud its freedom to be a cloud. You're giving the cloud the freedom to just float in the sky and do what clouds do. If that kind of idea that you're giving the cloud its freedom is something you can relate to. So the same thing is true in meditation for our emotional life, our emotions, for how we feel, our moods, the attitudes that we might have. It is possible, in a relaxed way, to watch them while giving them their freedom to move through as they do, as they wish. But the operating idea is that one is not involved with them, not even being for or against them, not resting in them or doing them, or in a certain kind of way, even enjoying them, if enjoying them means kind of savoring, being involved with them, or resisting them. If resisting them means pulling back or pushing against them or closing down. It's possible in meditation to give freedom to the emotions that are floating by, that are moving through, that are appearing, that are there. That does not mean we are for or against any emotions, or we've come to some kind of conclusion that it's a good emotion or a bad emotion or anything. It's just the operating idea is that we have the stability, the ease, the relaxation, and the freedom that we can give to things, or the freedom we have from things. And so with our emotional life. So to begin this meditation, to very simply, as you are, to close your eyes. And to check in with yourself. How are you feeling now? As if you were checking in with a friend to see how they are. And you offered a kind presence that doesn't interfere with your friend's feelings. You're just there to be a companion to whatever they're feeling. And you check in with yourself. How are you? And is there some way that you could watch, perceive how you are, recognize how you are, to give how you are some freedom, to allow it to be as if it's okay, it's allowed to be there, so that how you're feeling doesn't influence your judgments, your ideas, your reactions. Just sitting here and meditating. It's not the filter or the veil through which you see things. And then that part of you that can choose, that is free, that is not entangled with anything, maybe. With that part of you, choose to take a few long, deep breaths. Feeling the stretching of the opening of the rib cage and the chest as you breathe in deeply. And the relaxing as you exhale, the letting go. And perhaps as you exhale, you can also let go of the thoughts and concerns of the day or of the week and settle into your body, the simplicity of your body sitting here right now. And then letting your breathing return to normal. And ever so gingerly, ever so tenderly, allow your exhale to extend a little bit, longer exhale. Not with a strain, but almost more with a letting go, a relaxing, a settling in at the end of the exhale. And maybe for a moment, a fraction of a second, at the end of the exhale, pause before you inhale. And perhaps within that pause, let your thinking mind be quiet. Sometimes a teeny pause at the end of the exhale can allow you to be fresh for the inhale, or be prepared to feel the inhale more fully or more gratefully. And if it's nice to breathe this way, you can continue for a while. Or if this is enough, by all means you can stop. Just to breathe naturally instead. And perhaps as you exhale, you can relax the muscles of the face, the eyes. So many of our emotions are somehow involve the muscles of our face. And to allow your face to release and relax the holdings. every time you exhale. And also to relax the thinking mind. Relax your involvement with thinking, your interest in thinking. Settling in to your breathing, just breathing in the simplicity of the body sitting here. And then noticing now how you're feeling. Whatever emotion or mood or attitude that seems to be most pronounced for you, even if it's subtle. And to simply recognize it, maybe as if you would recognize or see a cloud in the sky. So you're not identified with it. Or even taking it personally. It's a natural phenomena. You could even say to yourself, of course I feel this. I'm part of nature too. And just to notice how you feel and to offer it its freedom by leaving it alone and just knowing it, seeing it, feeling it. Giving it permission to be there. Allowing how you feel to feel safe. It's safe to feel how you are. There's no danger of you being for or against it. You have permission to be just as you are. But you're not being the emotion. You're not defined by it. You're watching it like you're watching a cloud. And if it's helpful, you can breathe with it. Breathe through it. Sometimes breathing with or through something helps us not be entangled with what we're present for. Sometimes when meditation allows us to relax deeply into ourselves, below the surface layer of our mind, of our being, surface layer of our life, we can feel depths of feelings. We can touch into the deeper emotions within us, the ones that are eclipsed by the reactive emotions, by the afflictive emotions. Sometimes in meditation, as we relax deeply, settle deeply, we can feel the places that are the well springs of love, compassion, of care. And in the last little period of this meditation, can you feel into the depths of yourself? Maybe even for a little hint of where the source is for you, for compassion, for love, for care. Is there a place that from which these things arise, or where these things are felt the most? And feeling them, allowing them to be there, whatever degree they're there. Give these feelings their freedom too. Allow them to be there. And from this place, to now turn your attention to the world of the people you know, people in your community, and outward into the whole wide world. And can you gaze upon the world with the eyes of love, the eyes of compassion, the eyes of care? Be still and gaze upon all things kindly. And how is it that coming out of meditation, how would it be coming out of meditation to reflect now on how you can live this day, the next 24 hours, in some way to make the world a better place? Even if it's as simple as saying a few more kind words to whoever you might communicate with. Simple acts of kindness. May our meditation together today, all of us who are meditating together, may the goodness and the benefits of our practice, and may it be that we can go out into the world for the welfare and happiness of all beings everywhere. May we work for the happiness of all beings, so all beings may be peaceful, all beings may be free, and all beings can be deeply respected and appreciated. Sometimes respect is more important than food. And may it be that through your meditation that you respect yourself and value yourself. And in doing so, learn to respect others. So being the beginning of the week, there's a new theme for this week, and that is mindfulness of emotions. And for many people, I think many English-speaking people would say that emotions are a central aspect of life, and a very important aspect of life. That emotions are, for some people, is how they navigate the world, understand themselves. It's what they oriented around. Some people are not so centrally focused on emotions, but they're still playing a very important part of life. And without what we call emotions, life wouldn't be as interesting. The stories we tell, books we read, movies we watch would be phenomenally dull if the characters in these stories were emotionally flat. There'd probably be very little drama and very little, excitement in these stories if that was the case. Emotions kind of, for some people, make life worth living and really infuses them with inspiration and purpose. So in some ways that's true, but it turns out, oddly enough, that no one really knows what an emotion is. I don't think so. I mean, tried to study this thing, and there's many theories, actually, about what an emotion is. We often assume we know what the emotions are, and we often very quickly will identify, of course I know. I know what anger is, I know what sadness is, I know what happiness is, joy. And of course I know. But as a category, emotions, which some people have very strong opinions about, it's actually hard to pin down exactly what it is and define it. Where is the line between what is an emotion and not an emotion? Is peace an emotion? Is calm an emotion? Some people would say yes. But is it the same kind of emotion as something like anger or joy or delight? Someone who wrote a book on the history of emotions made this amazing statement that in the English-speaking world, prior to 1830, no one experienced emotions. And so that's, kind of like a stunning statement. It seems that the word emotion entered the English language in the early 1800s. So English-speaking people have been using this word for about 200 years. And before that, there were other words that used, but rather than they were equivalent words to the word emotions, you needed a variety of different words to encompass what sometimes now we call emotions. If you go back to the ancient world of the Buddha and try to find an equivalent in his language for the English word emotion, you have a hard to find an equivalent. I know of no Pali word that can be translated by the English word emotion. Now, did the Buddha not experience emotions? Did the people before 1800 not experience any of the things we call emotions? Of course they did. They felt anger and sadness and joy and happiness. And we find in the ancient texts that there are words that translate that way pretty easily. But are they a perfect fit? There's words in Pali for things like that can be sadness, maybe. We're not quite sure how to translate some of these words. Even, are we supposed to translate them into words that are used in our English language? Emotions are cultural phenomena, just like everything else. But they're cultural phenomena which are also deeply connected to evolutionary instinct, reactions, responses we also have to the world. So the line between culture and conditioning and the physiology and the psychology of emotions being free, independent of culture, is a very loose, ambiguous line. So we don't find in ancient Buddhism the word emotion. And if you go through the Buddha's instructions for mindfulness practice, they have very clear instructions for it in a text called usually translated these days as the Discourse on the Four Foundations of Mindfulness. He doesn't talk about emotions in a very obvious and clear way, the way that we would expect it there. So this is one way of understanding this, is that if human experience is a pie, and you slice the pie to offer your friends pie, that human pie of experience can be divided up many different ways, and different cultures divide it up different ways. And so the Buddha, seemingly when he gives instructions for mindfulness, was taking and dividing up human experiences in different ways than we would necessarily do it here in the English West, in the English-speaking world. And it's very interesting then to practice his instructions in relationship to emotions, what we call emotions, because it challenges us a little bit not to get too hung up but what we think is our experiences. Just as the notion of self, the ideas, the identification to self, is something that Buddhists tend not to want to do. They don't see our experience through the lens of self-identity. So they don't see it through the lens of this particular idea of emotion that we have in English. And just as in the modern psychology and clinical studies of the human emotions, human psychology, there's very little difficult to pinpoint what the self is. It's hard to pinpoint what an emotion is for modern researchers. So if you go back to ancient Buddhism, it doesn't really support our usual ideas of who we are and how we are. This is not to disorient us, but rather it can help us free us from the fixed categories and ideas that we sometimes struggle under and limit ourselves by. So these four foundations of mindfulness is an alternative way of organizing the human pie of experience. But if we take emotions, whatever you want to include in the category of emotions, it's possible to use these four different slices of the pie that the Buddha talked about to get a new perspective on emotions for the purpose of becoming free. Not free of them, but free with them, free from them while still having them. And one of the great gifts we can give our emotions is their freedom, but not freedom to run havoc if you're angry or full of lust or something, but rather given the permission to be there free like a cloud in the sky, to allow it to morph and change and unfold in whatever way it wants. And so these four slices of the human pie that the Buddha uses is to experience things through the vantage point of our physical embodied experience, to experience it from the vantage point of the subjective experience, subjective feeling of whether things are pleasant, unpleasant, or neither pleasant or unpleasant. So that would be called feelings in Buddhism. And then the third pie piece is the state of the mind, both the motivational state of the mind, what drives us to be involved in the world, or the orientation we have towards the world and activity, but also more deeply the overall state, quality, characteristics of the awareness itself, the mind. And then the fourth basket is the reactivities of the mind, the activities of the mind in relationship to having an emotion. So if we go through these four different categories, areas, and we're looking at emotions, we see the emotions not as a singular thing, but we start seeing it as a composite, which is exactly what modern researchers are coming up in their different theories of emotions, that emotions are never a singular thing, but are a composite of a variety of different things that come together to create the particular emotion that we're talking about. And mindfulness can be a process by which we begin seeing clearly what these different elements are. Not to the purpose to validate emotions or to repress emotions or deny emotions or have aversive to emotions, but in the end, not even to give emotions their freedom, which is little bit can be confusing, this idea of giving emotions freedom. But really, in a Buddhist point of view, the real thing we're doing is we're not clinging to emotions, learning radical non-clinging, non-attachment. And that is a phenomenal thing to grant our inner life. For our inner life to exist there without any clinging to any of it allows some of the best creative, intelligent, compassionate, loving parts of our life to come through. So in these days, this week, I'll go through these four foundations of mindfulness as a way of looking at emotions, four different areas of emotions, four different perspectives or aspects of it. And in doing so, I hope that you find it instructive and interesting, useful to look at emotions in new ways and understand it in different ways than maybe we usually do. And maybe it supports you in how to discover this phenomenal capacity for freedom, which in Buddhist language means non-clinging to our emotions. So that's the plan for these next 4 days. And I look forward to our time together. Thank you.